welcome to the first episode of Boozin on a Budget, where we are mental about the fermented. I don't know about you, but I drank my way through the pandemic. Not only did I drink my way through the pandemic, I researched, I learned, I read about wine, I read about whiskey, tequila, rum, beer, distillation, marketing, all these things. While I was drinking, I was reading and researching. I was spending my time researching and reading all about this stuff. My friends, I'll tell you what, the obsession started out with wine. I've always been a beer guy, a cocktail guy, take a shot. It started out with wine. When I started drinking wine, somebody turned me on to wine. I could not learn enough about it. There was a vast amount of information out there that was, to be quite honest with you, pretty intimidating. And I had no idea what I was doing with wine. So I set out to learn as much as I could about wine. During that journey, I started learning about whiskey, rum, tequila, vodka, all kinds of different things, craft beer, craft distillers, craft whiskey. There's all these things happening in the booze industry that I used to just kind of knock it back, go out on the weekend, have some drinks with friends, but I started learning that there's a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information out there about the things that we can drink, and I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn so that I didn't feel intimidated going to the liquor store. That's what Boozin on a Budget is all about. We're going to learn as much as we can about all the fermented beverages that we can so that we can gain knowledge and information and feel a little less intimidated when we go into the liquor store, into the bar, the wine bar, the brewery, whatever it may be. Not only are we going to cultivate knowledge, information, and appreciation for our alcoholic beverages, we're going to do so all with considering our budget. Budget is tight these days. Money is tight these days. The most important thing for me, considering my budget, was I wanted to experience the best wines that I could experience, the best whiskeys, the best beer, the best rum, whatever it is. I wanted to experience the best spirits, the best wine for the best budget that I could find them. And you know what? I stumbled upon something that happens in the wine world called QPR, quality to price point ratio. And what QPR means is that we're going to find the highest quality wine, beer, whiskey, whatever it may be. We're going to find the highest quality for the lowest price. It's about value. And what QPR means, QPR does not always mean cheap. You can find a $100 bottle of wine that has QPR. You can find a $10 bottle of wine that has QPR. QPR does not mean cheap. It has more to do with the quality of what you're getting for the price that you paid. In the industry, you will hear things like, this is a high QPR wine. This $25 Paso Robles wine drinks like $125 Napa Valley wine. So that is good QPR. QPR, quality to price point ratio, is started in the wine world. However, I believe that we can apply QPR across the board to all the alcoholic beverages. Because again, here at Boozin on a Budget, we want to find the highest quality beverages for the lowest price that we can find them for without sacrificing quality. We're going to find the best stuff for the best value. Now, I'm all about appreciation. Like I said, as I get a little bit older, as I get a little bit deeper into the knowledge and the information of this stuff, I'm starting to cultivate an appreciation for this, an appreciation for the science behind distillation, the science behind winemaking. The more I learn, the more I appreciate, really take in the experience of what I'm having. So how do we cultivate appreciation? We're going to slow down. We're going to be mindful about what we're doing. We're going to use our palate, our nose, our eyes. We're going to take the time to really slow down and smell what we're drinking, smell our wine, smell our whiskey, smell our rum. We're going to slow down and taste it on our palate. We're not just going to knock it back to get drunk. We're going to sip it. We're going to appreciate it. We're going to look at the color, the viscosity. What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What notes can we get from it? When you start diving into the world, you start learning about this, you start gaining the knowledge, you can really get an appreciation for what you're drinking, and that's what we're looking for. So again, Boozin on a Budget. Each episode we're going to focus on different alcoholic beverages, and we're just going to take the time to appreciate them, learn about them. We're going to do all this taking out the intimidation, the snobbery. We're going to have fun with it. We're going to take a lighter approach to it. There's no snobbery here. We're going to have fun with this. We're going to goof around, but we're going to certainly learn and appreciate. We're going to learn by drinking as we continue on. That's what Boozin on a Budget is all about. All right, guys, we're back. We're going to go into a segment that I like to call binge thinking. Each week, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks, some pro tips, if you will. We're going to learn about all kinds of stuff. We're going to really dive in. We're going to get detail specific on some of this stuff. Each week is going to have some tips, some tricks. We're going to learn about very specific stuff in binge thinking. It's going to just heighten your appreciation and your knowledge of alcoholic beverages. This week in our segment, binge thinking, I want to talk about fermentation. Let's start at the beginning. Fermentation. What is fermentation? Well, my friends, fermentation is where the magic happens. Fermentation is what brings us the alcohol in all the beverages that we truly enjoy. Fermentation is the chemical reaction when yeast eats sugar in the absence of oxygen and creates two byproducts, carbon dioxide and ethyl alcohol. You know, you've seen those pictures of the bubbling beer vats. It's bubbling and foaming up to the top. That's the CO2 coming off as the yeast eats the sugar in our wine, in our beer, in our whiskey mash, all that stuff. That's what creates the alcohol, the feel-good stuff, fermentation. Fermentation has been around for a long, long time. People have used fermentation to create food, drinks, alcoholic beverages, all kinds of stuff. Back in the day, they used fermentation as medicine. Evidence of the first fermented alcoholic beverages come from 7000 to 6600 in Neolithic China, where there is some evidence of fermented beverages used from fruit, honey, and rice. There's a lot of conjecture about when fermentation actually happened. It's kind of, you got to go back in history. They were fermenting before that for food and all that good stuff, but we're going to focus on the alcohol. When you hear people talking about secondary flavors in wine, whiskey, other products like that, and you're like, where are those flavors coming from? Where is all that stuff coming from? It's fermented grape juice, it's whiskey, it's beer. What is all that stuff coming from? A lot of secondary flavor characteristics come from the actual fermentation process. And that process, it varies. There's different ways to ferment things. Ferment beer, ferment wine, different fermentation processes that produce different results. We're going to cover those for each specific alcohol that we do cover in our shows. But just suffice it to say right now, there is so much to be said about fermentation and what it adds to a drink, what it adds to the wine, these secondary flavor characteristics. So much of that stuff starts in the fermentation process. Our next segment is going to include a guest. We're going to bring some guests on from the industry. I'm in the process of lining up some wonderful guests. I'm going to have some bar owners, a winery owner, somebody deep in the beer industry, bartenders, other industry professionals, sommeliers, all kinds of guests we're going to bring on here. We're going to get their perspective. We're going to hear their stories. And we're going to gain some knowledge, some information from all over the industry. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to, talking to some other people, getting some other perspectives, bringing in some information from all around the alcohol industry. One of my guests I'm excited to bring on, they own a mobile bar service. Mobile bar services, very popular these days. So we're going to have a guest segment. We're going to bring some people on via live, via Zoom, whatever the case may be. But stay tuned for that. I've got an entire slate of guests lined up. You're not going to want to miss that. All kind of industry insiders, professionals. We're going to hear from all sorts of people. Look forward to our guest segment. All right, guys, our next segment is Drink of the Week. Each week, I'm going to feature a certain drink. Maybe a beer, maybe a cocktail, maybe a glass of wine, maybe a margarita. We're going to feature some type of drink of the week. It's going to be seasonal. It's going to be relevant maybe to what we're looking at seasonal wise. All right, my friends, each episode is going to feature a drink of the week. Tonight, I'm sipping on a craft whiskey, a straight bourbon whiskey from Austin, Texas, called The Musician. The distillery is called Still Austin. I popped this open tonight, and I gotta tell you what, I'm loving it. The grains are 100% from Texas. This happens to be 70% white corn, 25% rye, and 5% malted barley. It's coming in at 98.4 proof. If you're thinking to yourself, what's a mash bill? What does proof mean? We're going to cover all that stuff in upcoming episodes. We're going to educate ourselves on that. So if you don't know what that stuff is, don't feel bad. We're going to come back to that. But this one really good. I popped this open. It's got caramel. It's got toasted marshmallow, a little bit of cinnamon. It's sweet. It's got a little bit of spiciness from the rye. Really good stuff from the craft distillery in Austin, Texas. All right, my friends, our last segment tonight is called Pairs With. One of the biggest things that I started learning when I started really researching, doing a deep dive on wine and all these things, was that people are not just drinking this stuff, they're pairing it with their meals, they're pairing it with their food, and they're doing that at a high level. Well, what does pairing mean? Pairing means taking a specific wine, pairing it with a specific dish. A red wine going with red meat. White wine going with a little bit of seafood or a little white sauce. Red wine with a little bit of red sauce for pasta or pizza. Zinfandel wine with barbecue. Whiskey with a cigar. That is the next level of appreciation that we can find when we're talking about our adult beverages. And I tell you what, there is a little bit of magic that happens when you get your first pairing. It's like, seriously, you'll hear people talking about this all the time. When you start pairing your beverages with your meals, it is a next level of appreciation. When you do something well, when you pair something well, the alcoholic beverage tastes better and the food tastes better. The first thing I paired that really blew my mind was I started reading that Gewürztraminer, which is a white wine, pairs well with sort of that sweet and spicy Asian food. And I tell you what, so I got some sweet and sour chicken or something like that. I paired it with my Gewürztraminer and my mind was blown. I truly paired something up that night that made the food and the wine taste better. So we're gonna dive in all about pairing. Each week we will talk about what pairs with what, how to pair things together. We're gonna talk about pairing our food with our drinks to get the most out of our meals and our alcoholic beverages. If you're not pairing things, that's one of the biggest things you need to do. You're down here, you start pairing things, you're up here. That kicks you into a whole other level of appreciation. We're gonna start pairing all this stuff together. You can pair rum, you can pair tequila, you can pair your beer. It's gonna open up an entire new world of sensory experiences, and that is what we're here to do. We're here to appreciate, here to really dive deep into just experiencing these different things, and we're gonna do that all with finding the best stuff that we can without breaking the bank. All right, guys, let's talk about our next episode. In our next episode of Boozin' on a Budget, we're going to talk all about what to bring to Thanksgiving dinner, what pairs well with Thanksgiving dinner. We're going to talk about wines, we're going to talk about our beer, our whiskey, bourbon bacon Thanksgiving time. We're going to talk about all that, what to bring to Thanksgiving dinner, what pairs well with all of those dishes, what alcohol you can bring to best dull your senses when you're talking to your family who have differing political opinions than you. We're going to talk about all that stuff in relation to Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving time of year. So stay tuned for our next week's episode of Boozin' on a Budget. We're going to get all into Thanksgiving. We're going to talk about seasonal stuff. We're going to have some binge thinking. We're going to talk about some detailed stuff. We're going to increase our knowledge, increase our awareness, increase our appreciation. We're going to do all that without breaking our bank, because that's what Boozin' on a Budget is all about. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Titan TV. We'll see you guys next week on Boozin' on a Budget. Look at the bottle. Come on now. She's playing her hair as a guitar. There's like a red bird. It's fantastic. Pairing the stuff with the wine and the food and the stuff is good. It makes it so good.